does working so close to code and developers influence the way you think about documentation today?
Conceptually, it's all making instructions. So basically, whatever the user needs to do, you need to map out their journey to know what their goal is and why they're there. And whether you're going to use like an editor, like an XML editing tool or a framework or whatever you want to use, like CCMS, or you're going to use like the tool your developers do.
Do you see AI as more of an assistant or a disruptor for tech writers?
Both. We're going to do more with less. A long time ago, it took a lot to train a person to actually get to the gist of a topic and then pass it along in understandable, simplified English. And then you get like broken up into like a sequence of steps, never more than 6 to 8 steps. If it's more than that, you break it into multiple procedures and things like that. So the whole journey has now been like automated, and I find it really rewarding.
Welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast, where Gauri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. With me today, I have Strahinja Milosevic, Senior Technical Writer at Bitvavo. Hi, Strahinja. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ari. I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. And welcome to the podcast. I'm very excited to know about your 10 plus years of journey in this space. And before we start anything, let's start with your journey. How did you first get into technical writing, and how has the journey been so far with tools, teams, ever changing?
Yeah. So basically, as an English major, there was a lot to do after university. But where I come from, they kind of like always expect you to do what you studied. And then after changing some jobs and trying to find myself, I stumbled upon technical writing, as most people do. But initially, I was trying to find somewhere I can utilize my language skills. And I was always interested in technical stuff, computers, like guitars, video games, all of this stuff, like latest tech. So this came like as a nice fit for me.
Great. Now, from your profile, we understand that you work very closely with tools like Docusaurus, GitHub, and internal engineering systems as well, right? So how does working so close to code and developers influence the way you think about documentation today?
Well, conceptually, not too much. So basically, the most important thing is to pass on the point and the instruction, right? To get the information to the users that they need. But on the other hand, as a workflow, it is very rewarding working with developers and engineers and other not so like-minded people, because like you have to think like the person that you're writing for. So thinking like a developer, like using version control, trying to use and incorporate the tooling into your whole daily workflow kind of helps. It also comes with some, very rewarding experience. Like you can find everything in a version control system and things like that. But basically, the whole Docs as Code approach has always been, the latest, hot topic in our space. But going back to my first point, is like conceptually, it's all making instructions. So basically, whatever the user needs to do, you need to map out their journey to know what their goal is and why they're there. And whether you're going to use like an editor, like an XML editing tool or a framework or whatever you want to use, like CCMS, or you're going to use like the tool your developers do, it's beside the point. The point is to pass on the knowledge and what they need to do.
True, very true. Now with AI, automation, and Docs as Code becoming more and more common, do you see AI as more of an assistant or a disruptor for tech writers?
Both. Basically, that fabled 10x developer myth, where you're going to have an AI or augment the programmer and then they're going to do like miracle work, or like you're going to find like that single unique staff engineer that's going to scale everything up. I kind of feel like that's becoming the conversation around the world in our domain as well. Basically, everybody that's following the latest tech and trying to use it to the best of their abilities, becoming like an augmented technical writer. And I've been seeing these like concepts and now like augmented technical writing and like we're going to do more with less. And I kind of find it to be true. Basically, there's a lot of really interesting things. You can draft it. You can use it for drafting documents. You can use it like with specific commands like second opinion to let it argue with itself, to take another persona. You can assign it personas and then use another model to critique it and to get something usable. But what we all of us are forgetting here, I mean, maybe not all of us, but some people are forgetting that basically the whole large language model idea is built around like consuming the content to get something usable. And basically everything that they're consuming has already been written to some degree as a technical writing product. And basically they are using the structured authoring approach already. They're already using the topic-based authoring. So basically now there's this shift in the industry where people say like with any automation or new tech, but they say like we're going to get replaced, we're going to lose our jobs and things like that. And I don't think that's the case. I think that basically the product from an NLM is basically structured the way it is because it has consumed enough content that was purposefully created like that because that's how humans read. And then it's viewing all of these like topics and like short sentences that we would normally make. But like a long time ago, it took a lot to train a person to actually get to the gist of a topic and then pass it along in understandable, simplified English. And then you get it like broken up into like a sequence of steps, never more than 6 to 8 steps. If it's more than that, you break it into multiple procedures and things like that. So the whole journey has now been like automated, and I find it really rewarding. You can use it to start your page if it gets away from you, so to speak. You can put checks and balances. You can kind of like curate the content and get to what you need. So it is definitely a disruptor in a sense that we're not really doing the work like we used to do before, but we can do so much more with less time. I personally right now I'm a team of one. Basically, I'm embedded in an engineering team, but I'm a single writer, and I would have needed much more like writing help and reviewing help had it not been for AI or LLMs, so to speak. But everybody's kind of like this when there's a new advancement in technology, like even hoopers, like the barrel makers, they automated their job at some point, right? They started making better tools. So it just makes sense to use the tools. I don't think it's anything like against technical writing as a profession or like writers or people in general. I just think it's a natural flow. You want to improve your product, your tooling, and yourself.
True. Now, but still, there must be something that still cannot be automated in documentation, right? So what do you think that could be?
Oh, of course. Well, I think this is the same across any job. And I keep telling people that communication and getting to the data is the thing that you cannot automate. Because if there's nobody to write it down and pass it along in an internal knowledge space like, Google Doc or whatever it is, a Miro board, there's nothing to pass on and there's nothing to automate. As any technical writer will tell you, like writing is the, smallest part of the job. Like 70, 80% of the job is like getting to the content, testing it out, seeing what works, breaking stuff along the way. And then what remains, everything that's reviewed, critiqued, and like, thrown away, the little nugget of truth that remains, that's what's usable. And that thing needs coordinating human communication and human behavior. It does not really need automation. I mean, it does need automation, of course, but in a sense of like the tooling that we use. Like you have probably heard it from a lot of other people that, we have like this great tooling, like the pipeline is perfect, automation, but the engineers just don't write.
Yeah, very true. Now, you're part of the Write the Talks community and you also follow a lot of experienced documentarians. Now, what are some common, or let's say, what are some conversations or concerns you see coming up repeatedly around the future of technical writing?
Well, right now it's all about AI, LLMs, right? It kind of reminds me of that microservices craze like 7, 8 years ago. I swear to God, like every meeting that I was a part of had like microservices said like 5 times during the meeting. So I kind of feel like that. It was a good shift in technology and all of this stuff. I mean, that can be argued as well.
Yeah.
But right now it's all about this like traditional technical writing is getting obsolete. But I feel in a way it's better because
Yeah.
people will always need content curation, and that starts even with podcasting, and like these YouTube algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
The content will grow without boundaries, and people will need to curate it. And then LLMs will continue to do what they do best, which is basically regurgitate content and get to the, little nugget of truth, as I called it before, as best they can. And that is also improving. But you will need to still tell it what the product should be. And you can, I think it's a good way to think about it is like you have like a team of developers, any kind of developers, and they're very capable people. They can make anything, whether it's a house or a software product. But what's the role of product? So the product managers or owners or product people. So basically, they are there to figure out what is the market fit, what's going to sell, what's going to make the money. So what the product is going to be. And some people don't even believe that they do like that for a reason. I feel like we are in that space right now. So there is this like developed software that can do these amazing things quite well, but still, if you don't tell it what to make and what the documentation product should be, and it is a product, it is a product for sure. So if you don't tell it what we need, it's probably not going to hit the proper spot.
Yeah. So one last question from my side is any trends in technical writing you think aren't talked about enough?
About trends, well, most of them are still like in a very vocal society of technical writers online community connected to LLMs. And the shift is going, so this is not talked about maybe outside of those circles, because the most vocal people are kind of swaying the conversation, but I still, it's not talked about enough. The documentation as a concept is becoming operational and not just like instructional or explanatory. And the personas are shifting. We are shifting towards writing for machines instead of writing for humans. And it's basically a lot of people are now relying on these like chat-based systems throughout
Yeah.
the product portfolio that they use on a daily basis to get to the data. Like there's products like Gleam that can search through all of your knowledge bases like that you
Yeah.
have, and they're amazing. So in a way, we will need to make a shift to like creating proper documentation and like background context for LLMs to scrape, index, and serve in a proper way. And not everybody is doing it. And like with agentic AIs, even MCPs, like model context protocols, will sway the conversation in a better direction, so to speak, because like it will limit algorithmically what they can do and how they should do it. So I think that is kind of starting to be is starting to move upstream into like product design and all of these main topics because everybody seems to be doing it at the same time. But I think in documentation we still like have documentarians that are like very protective of their own craft. Like I have invested my whole life trying to, write better on structured content and do like the content architecture and this model and that model. And then like this is now, you can throw it away, it's getting deprecated. But in a way, I would welcome it more than just like complain about it and just use the opportunity to educate and advocate for ourselves even more, if that makes
True.
sense.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And now to the rapid fire round questions. What are some valuable resources that you recently consumed, particularly on documentation side? And if there is anything, can you please recommend to the viewers?
Yes, I think most of your interviewees, some of these at least, like Write the Docs community is huge by now. I've been watching it grow over years. You can find a lot of very nice channels in their Slack about job posts, like education, like just like, just talking to somebody if you need to. But like for people just starting to get into technical writing, even like developers at my work, I recommend there's like two very succinct, short technical writing courses from Google that you
Sure.
can use. And if you want to go into API documentation, so that when I was starting out, that one helped me like get very granular and low level when it came to like different aspects of API documentation. Apart from that, there's a couple of blogs that I follow just because I enjoy them, like Paso Uno from Fabrizio or there was I want to give a shout out to Jill Shaheen. I just found her last week. I think she has one of the more interesting websites when it comes to technical writing portfolios. I think she's just starting to write her blogs or publish them online, but that's the one I've been enjoying last week.
Right. That was very useful and informative, Strahinja. So when you hear the word documentation, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, goals, aim. That's it for me. Why this fit into the puzzle of my personality is because it was somewhere between language and tech. Because when I graduated, like where I come from, it's like you like a subject in school, and then you find a course at your university that's kind of like relatable to that subject, like whether it's mathematics or like a language. And then when you graduate from language studies, you are a translator or a teacher. And I didn't want to be a teacher. And then I became a translator first because that was more technical. And then for the first time ever in my 20s, I discovered, oh, I like reading books, but I don't want to write books. But this technical translation stuff is very interesting. And then there was a clear goal at the end of that, like this serves a purpose. I do something, I get to the goal state. And then technical documentation turned out to be the perfect fit.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Fantastic. Yeah. And I always ask this question, a piece of advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, kind of building off the last response. I would say don't listen to people who try to fit you in a category according to what they know and what they think. Like, for me, it was like, try to look for a job that has your diploma. And, I don't think that exists in the world, or it's not very helpful anymore, if it ever was. So I would just tell, like, go explore, find what you like, do that. Maybe you failed, but like maybe you find something cool to do.
So follow your passion.
So to speak, yes.
Yeah, good. Anything else I must ask you today?
Yeah, I always say this. I wrote it down for myself first, and then I started telling it later to other people. Something you just need to write it down. It's not about technical writing. It's not about creative writing or any kind of. It's just like you just need to write down stuff because you will forget. And for me, it reinforces writing discipline, and then you retain more information as you go on. So whether it's like an idea for something else that you wanted to develop into a blog or a short story, or if it's just like writing down your expenses or your finances are in a better shape and you get an overview, just write it down. Believe me, nobody else has to read it. If it turns out to be a useful thing for everybody else to read, put it online, great, but just write it down.
True. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we all live in a very busy world, and it could be as small as something that you think you will never forget, but that must be the first one to just vanish out of your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's a great tip. Thank you so much for that great tip, and all the details that you have shared in the last 20 minutes or so has been absolutely wonderful to hear. And I hope many people will implement some of your good practices in their day-to-day work as well.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was lovely to meet you and to talk to you about.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Yeah, it was, as I said, it was great connecting with you, and all the very best for 2026 and for the projects that you've planned ahead.
Yes, likewise.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.